Well, hello, Forest Meadow, and welcome back to another episode of our sermon reflections. And on Sunday, if you were able to be there live because the power went out, we talked about when Jesus was brought before Caiaphas, the high priest. And there, Caiaphas asked him a question. He asked him whether or not he was the Messiah, the Son of God. And at first, Jesus did not respond to him. And we talked about that on Sunday, about the reason behind this is that Jesus had a greater priesthood than even the high priest who was right in front of him. So, in other words, Jesus outranked Caiaphas the high priest in every conceivable way. Caiaphas, think about this. Caiaphas was appointed on earth, whereas Jesus was appointed in heaven, in a kingdom that rules over everything. So just consider this for a moment. Imagine that you are king, but rather than being king over all the earth, you're king of an ant hill. Just think about that. Now, are you still king? Well, yes, you technically are still king, but you're king over such a small, insignificant kingdom that it really only makes a difference when speaking to the ants. And so, when it comes to Jesus, he is king over all things. And up to this point in time, Jesus has not really displayed his transcendent sovereignty, except perhaps in the case of maybe the Mount of Transfiguration, Matthew 17, maybe small examples. But remember, Jesus instructed his disciples, even in that event, to tell nobody what they had seen. And so, then, when the high priest adjures Jesus by the living God who had supreme authority over all things, then Jesus finally answers the question. And when the high priest asks by God's authority, Jesus says, "Okay, I'll answer because you have submitted everything to my kingdom." But Caiaphas, he doesn't really like the answer that he receives. Jesus claims to be the one who will have all authority and power, the very one who sits upon the judgment seat. And so we're not confused, not the seat to be judged, but the seat that will judge all others. He is the Son of Man coming in the clouds, the guy who raises the dead in Daniel 12, who judges all things. And it seems that the priests really should have known that the Messiah would do all these things. They should have known this. They just thought that the Messiah would look different than Jesus looked. And so they didn't consider that Jesus might just be the Messiah. So practically speaking, what does this mean for us? Well, let's stop, pause, reflect a little bit, and consider our lives. If we know that Jesus will reign and rule over all things for the rest of eternity, my question is, are we taking the time to offer him our lives now? Are we living in a way where our lives are truly a living and holy sacrifice to God? Or are we living our lives for the pleasures of here and now, for the things that we enjoy here and now? In other words, have we truly submitted ourselves to Jesus' lordship? It's only a matter of time before Jesus comes back and reveals himself in all of his glory, in all of his splendor. But we don't have to wait until that time to bow our knees before him. We don't have to wait until he returns before we finally give up and say, "Jesus, you win." We can take whatever life that we have, not tomorrow, but take the life that we have today and live our lives in a manner that's pleasing to him. We have the opportunity today, as long as it is still called today, to live our lives in a manner that we won't be embarrassed when Jesus shows back up. Remember, the Master is returning, and when he returns, he will judge every single one of us for the deeds that we have done and for the deeds that we should have done and didn't. And so, all of this, right, it's not about how much we can show others how much we love Jesus. It's not about a display of our love for Jesus. It's about how much we actually truly love Jesus. It's not a show. And how did Jesus teach us who truly loves him? Remember, he says this, "For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. For whatever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that has overcome the world, our faith. If you remember this is in 1 John chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. So it's a really good thing to reflect upon, whether or not our lives look like obedience to Christ and his commandments, and whether or not the things that I experience and the things that I do, whether or not I'm receiving these commandments in a burdensome way or I get to obey them in a joyful way. Even if we suffer, we have a kingdom which is unshakable, eternal in the heavens, which is just around the corner. But we must be ready by living our lives for him, for Jesus, and for his kingdom. And we must do this today. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our questions for the week. Our first question is this: did Jesus actually say that he was going to destroy the temple? Number 2, why did Jesus not respond to the questions? Number 3, who was Caiaphas and how did he get his job? Just as a quick note, in those days, at least according to Josephus, the chief priest was appointed by the Roman governor and served under his authority. At least that's what Josephus claims. Number 4, who is Jesus and what are all of his attributes? Number 5, why did Jesus begin to speak after being silent? Number 6, who is the Son of Man and why is he called that? Number 8, what is the punishment for blasphemy? Number 8, was Jesus guilty of blaspheming? Number 9, why did the high priest believe Jesus was not telling him the truth? Number 10, what should our expectation be of our Messiah? And how should we respond to him? Well, that's about all the time that we have for today. But just as a quick teaser, this next week we're going to be looking at the crowds and how they are asking for Barabbas and shouting, "Crucify him." And we'll also consider how the crowds did not really understand what they said when they said this: "His blood be on us and our children." Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and thank you so much for your desire to dig deeper into the Scriptures, and I hope you have a great day.